Hello and welcome to another comedian's interview for my blog and podcast, A Rich Comic Life. My name is Richard Gill and my blog describes my experiences of watching over 1,400 comedians for the last 50 years. I'm delighted to welcome my guest today. It's Carla Gordon. Yay!
Hello. Hi. What
How
a
are you?
welcome. Wow. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you very much. Thank you so much for doing this.
Oh no, you're more than welcome. I can't believe you've seen over 1,400 comedians.
It's it's absolutely bonkers.
As one of them, I can only apologize. So I'm
No,
so
you're
sorry.
you stood out when I saw you, and I'm delighted that you're here to talk about your comedy career.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, let's start off then and go right back to the start and tell me, how did you become a comedian in the first place, please?
Well, it's a really boring story to be honest. I just hated my job at the time and was like trying to apply for other jobs. And you know when you're trying to apply for a job, but you're looking at all of the kind of like requirements for other jobs that are similar and they're all just the same things that you hate about your current job. So I was like, I really
We've
don't
all
want to
been
be
there.
doing this. Yeah, exactly. I was like, I really don't want to be doing this. And I was thinking about what I do like, and what I do like is to just make my friends laugh. So I was
Yeah,
like, I don't want to end up like Denzel Washington in Fences and be like, I could have been great. Like I wanted to like really try it. So I went and joined a comedy course thing. I did Logan Murray's comedy course
yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And
He's been on here.
oh, has he?
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
such a
yeah,
lovely man. He's
yeah.
really, really great.
It's
And
yet to be
he was
released,
great.
but it was a very good interview with him. He's a very clever man.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
incredibly clever.
yeah,
He's also a really great teacher because he's
yeah,
like a lot of people look down on comedy courses, and I do kind of understand where they're coming from. But for him, he was basically just like he wanted to help you find what was funny about you. So
yeah,
there wasn't really like this is how you write a joke. It was like what are your ideas about today or whatever. So it was quite kind of improv heavy, I guess. And
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
just really enjoyed it.
So what sort of year was this?
So that was in 2019, so
Right.
just before the pandemic, which is honestly, mwah, best time to start
It couldn't
comedy.
have been
Just
better.
incredible timing,
Who are
yeah.
you?
Really good for me. Started in like August 2019, and by March 2020 we were in full lockdown, so it was great.
So,
But yeah, it was fun.
so, what was your first gig like then? Presumably from the comedy course, you would go and do a 5 minute gig or something in a pub. Is that how it works?
Yeah, he did have so Logan had like a showcase thing at the end of the I can't remember how long the course was. I think it was something like 10 weeks.
Yeah.
But I'd done me and my friend Izzy, who was on the course with me, like we didn't know each other before going into that course, but we just made really good friends on it. And so we'd both decided we didn't want that to be the first one because we were really scared. So we went and did like a 5 minute set at Comedy Virgins in Stockwell.
Know it well. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone
Yeah.
does. It's kind of the main place to, if you're a
Yeah.
London-based comedian, where you start is Comedy Virgins.
Mm. Yeah, the that's the wonderful thing about this blog. My background is administration, and I love it. I work for a council. I've just started working for Wandsworth Council, and I absolutely love
Nice.
it. And it's really good. But I'm an administrator there, and I always think administrator is very wide. You know, it's such a
Yeah.
wide thing, and you know it's great and it's fine, and you go and you do your work, and everybody's happy, and all the rest of it. But I think if I firmly believe that if anybody's got an interest or a passion, go and do it, because who would have thought how well this blog and podcast has taken off? It's not just the big hitters that I try and support and promote. It's the up and coming comedians. I've seen so many comedians, famous comedians, who have started off in little tiny clubs and watched them grow, and that's
That's
the
so
magic
nice.
of it. It's the magic of it. And I saw you at Sofa So Funny. I
Yes.
think, was it last year or earlier this year? I
I
think it
think
was
it was
earlier
in
this year.
December. I can't
Yeah,
remember.
yeah, yeah. And you really stood out. You made me laugh consistently out loud, and I thought you would make a great guest on here. So thank you
Mm.
again for coming along.
Oh,
When
thank you. You made a great audience member. That laugh is famous, I'm sure, amongst all the comedians.
well, I should ensure the laugh. Thank you very much. um, so when you're on stage, when I saw you on stage, was there anything you particularly wanted to talk about? What do you like to talk about on stage? Do you have any themes or anything like that?
Not so much themes. I would say that most of what I talk about is fairly horny. It's like
Right.
not,
well,
not
that's a
something I'm
theme.
necessarily proud of, but it is a part of who I am. So love that. Yeah, I like to talk about like what's happened kind of in my day. I really like to like riff and just kind of like find what's funny in the room. That's my favorite part of being on stage.
Yeah.
So if I can find something that is like has happened that day or that week or whatever, I get really bored doing the same jokes. So like even if it's a joke that I know works, if I'm telling it, I hate it. Like so I just like to try and find new stuff all the time.
I like the originality.
Yeah, it often flops, I'll be honest with you, Richard. It
That's
doesn't
good. It's
always
good.
work.
What was particularly impressive about watching you was your energy on stage.
Oh, thank you.
Just amazing. It was like, hello, here I am. I'm going to make you laugh. This is amazing. And that's part of it. It's not just being funny. You've obviously got to be funny, but the enthusiasm and the warmth and energy on stage shone through.
Oh, that's really nice. I try like my this is I don't always manage to do this, but genuinely my goal is to make that audience in that room have the best time they can for the time
Yeah,
that I'm on stage.
yeah,
Like it doesn't really matter to me at all if I'm like the funniest person on a lineup or if I'm like the person who, you know, does best overall or has like the best career. Like I just really want to make the people who are in the room that I'm in the room with, because I think comedy is such a shared
yeah.
experience. And I think like so many comedians, this isn't, I'm not just going to shade all comedians, but I think so many comedians want their material to be perfect, which I totally understand. And I think is a really admirable position to be coming from. But for me, I'm like, these people have like come out, paid money, and they're like spending their time watching live comedy, which arguably is like a dying art. Like not many people are coming to clubs anymore. Like clubs are really struggling or have been. So it's like I don't know. I really care about making sure that everyone in that room feels like they're having a fun time and that it was worth them spending their evening there.
I find it quite difficult to realize that the comedy clubs are struggling because what's not to love? It's such a joyous
Mm.
experience to go and I mean if there's one criticism about my blog, everybody says, oh, you like everybody, but I'm talking about my experiences of watching them all. And of course when I go, I'm so passionate and enthused like you are being up on stage. I can imagine it must be like an adrenaline rush or a drug or when you get a laugh back off what you say. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think I would. I think it's to me like way that I'd measure like a successful gig is if I leave feeling like, oh, that was a really fun time with my friends. Like, which is so weird. Like, because obviously they're not your friends. The audience are not your friends. They don't want to be your friends. I've invited enough audience members to like add me on WhatsApp. Like, I'm like a freak like that. Like, I'm like, I really like just want to feel that sense of kind of community, I guess, within a small room. And I think laughter is like such a nice way to do that. But I don't know. I think it's it is exciting and exhilarating when you manage to get a laugh, but it doesn't feel like, to me at least, it's not like a kind of like achievement or something like tick done. Like I'm just like, okay, well, like we just had a good time together. That's what it feels like.
That's brilliant. That's so good. So when you're riffing on stage, because it moves on to the next question, can you tell me about the writing process for a routine or show? Do you have a particular way of writing what you're going to say? Do you have it on your hand? Do you have it in a notebook? Or do you just, as you say, riff?
Mostly I used to be quite a vigilant writer. Like I used to write a lot, and like I've got some routines which are like fully formulated kind of like sets basically, but I don't love doing them as much. So I've got like one set where I talk, it's gonna sound so gross, but I talk about fucking cartoon bears. And that is like, that's very
Right.
rigid. That's like not, oh, that's clearly not riffed. Although I will say that the writing process for that was just like the idea came to me in the shower, and then I was
Yeah.
like, okay, like I guess this is a thing. I'm gonna try it. So that's not, so like if I get an idea for something that I think will be funny, I'll speak on that. But it's not like written in a notebook anywhere, really. It's just like
No,
I
no.
might be in the shower that morning and think that's quite funny, and then speak about that night and see if I can get anything funnier out of it.
I had a go at stand-up comedy years and years ago.
Oh,
I tell this
nice.
to everybody. I've only done it once. Never say never again. But it was a I used to know a promoter at the Edinburgh Fringe years ago, and I said, "Oh, people think I'm funny in pubs, and I remember all the jokes from the comedians that I see at the comedy clubs. Can I have a go?" And he said, "Yeah, yeah, well, yeah, no problem." And he said, "No, it's an old folks gong show."
Oh God.
It couldn't be worse
Yeah, oh my God.
on a Monday afternoon in the rain, of course. So I wrote this script and I had everything. And he said, right, he said, you have to walk on and you be as long as you walked out. There's three people in the room. And I said, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. People think I look like Eddie the Eagle Edwards, the ski jumper, but I can't see the resemblance myself. Now, Eddie the Eagle Edwards in the 80s was the famous ski jumper who couldn't ski jump, and that's why he was famous. I was his absolute double when I walked out, and I thought, this is a fail safe. And one old bloke in the back just went, "Fuck off," and got me off. And I walked off to my own footsteps.
Oh my
And I said
God,
to
I'm
the promoter,
sorry.
have
That
another
sounds
go. I
horrible.
went, no, no. I said, I think my calling is in the audience, but never say never again. I do like to sit on the front row now, and because I carry the laughter, it's
Yeah.
so infectious that the comic on stage can't not but help but notice me, which is lovely. So never say never again, but that was my experience.
I mean, no wonder you didn't do it again if that was your first gig. Christ, that sounds horrible. I think all of the cards were stacked against you. I feel like my advice to anyone that was like starting comedy or wanting to would be
Mm,
like, do it for at least five, like at least five, and then decide.
mm.
Because like the first one, you're so nervous anyway that you can't really, like, I genuinely do not remember a second of being on stage for my first gig at all. And I had some friends there and they were like, that went well, like that did go well. And I was like, did it? I don't remember what I said, like
I can't
at
remember what I
all.
said.
Yeah, like I literally just blanked out the entire experience. And
Yeah.
then after that, it was way less nerve-wracking. And I feel like it was much better. But I would also advise don't do a gong show as your first
No,
gig.
horrible, horrible.
Yeah.
Avoid it. Because I was going to ask you. It's like a bonus question. You mentioned about the comedy competition with the comedy course with Logan Murray, and you meant and we're talking about the gong shows. What's your view of comedy competitions in general? Do you think they're a good thing? Do you think they help a comedian?
I think they can. I don't
Yeah,
think it's a guaranteed way to help a comedian.
yeah,
Like again, I don't want to be shady to my friends, but I've had some friends who have done really well in competitions and don't think they've seen a massive payoff from that. But then on the flip side, I've got friends who have done very well in competitions and have seen a massive
yeah,
payoff from that. And there's no real difference to me, at least, in the talent standard between those friends. Like they all did really well in those competitions. Do you know what I mean? So it's,
yeah.
I don't think it's like a kind of get out of jail free card. You'll shoot to, pass, do not pass go, like collect 200, you're immediately going to do really well.
Yeah.
It's not a guarantee. And I think a lot of people, especially when you're starting out, they see it as one. And yeah, I don't know. I've done like very mixed in competitions. I've never ever got a first placement. I've got a runner up, and then everywhere else I've kind of got to semi-finals or finals.
Well,
Not
congratulations.
placed, thank you, but I haven't placed. So it's like very much. I don't like. I think they can do a lot, but I don't think that they are the be all and end all. And I think if
Yeah,
you're not doing well in competitions, I wouldn't worry about it. Would be my
yeah,
advice.
yeah. What do you think, therefore, makes a good comedian?
I think that's so subjective. Like I think there are types of comedy which I'm not that into personally. Like, I don't love a one-liner comedian. There are a couple of examples where I do, like, and I think they are really good. But like, just for me personally, I can watch that and be like, oh, okay, that's a well-crafted joke. Like, and I won't be like, but I love you. So for me, I love like personality-driven comedians,
Yeah.
like people who are really charismatic. But that is not to say that those one-liner comedians aren't necessarily like technically better at comedy because they're writing better jokes. So, or like, you know, perfect, succinct, perfect jokes. It's completely up to what you like when you're as an audience member, what you enjoy watching. So I don't think there is such a thing as like a good comedian. I think they're all bad. No, that's not what I mean. I just think there's so much room for, it's like being like, what makes a good book? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's so many good books. You might as well just kind of explore and find out what your favorite type is.
I think you're so true about comedy being subjective, but I think there there's space for so many different kinds. So you've got the storytellers, you've got the one-liners that you say, you've got the idiots,
Yeah.
and I love the mixture of it all.
Yeah.
And you always look for, I've seen so many of them. I always look for I think originality, but I think warmth and enthusiasm as well as being funny. Because I've seen so many of them, and some of them can walk on and just hit you straight
Yeah.
away, and you think this is amazing. But then others build up, and it's wonderful watching how they try and create the laughter.
Yeah, I agree. I think like the best part about comedy in terms of comedians is the variety.
Yeah,
Like you can find so much different stuff. And if you explore and kind of go see not just stand up, but also like sketch or clowning acts, like you're gonna find something that really, really makes you laugh. And live comedy, when it's going well, like when it's a really good room and everyone's just having a really good time, there honestly is no better feeling. It's a really, really nice feeling for both the act and the audience.
it is amazing. There is something, as you say, about going to a live event. Really, comedy is a classic example where the lights go down and you have no idea what is going to happen,
Yeah.
both the comedian and the audience, and that's the magic, because
Yeah.
it's of the moment. You're in the room, and the comedian, if they want, can control that audience, and to get their point of view across. It's the most wonderful creative force. I think it sounds wanky, but that's what I
No, it
think.
doesn't. It's honestly like it is hard. It's hard to talk about comedy, which is such a silly thing,
Yeah,
in any kind of serious way and not sound wanky.
yeah,
Like it really is. Like it's just jokes at the end of the day. Like it's
yeah,
just silliness.
yeah, yeah.
But I do think there's something so special about like the relationship between an audience, the comedian and the audience. And I think like that's my favorite part of the whole thing. Like I love it so much. Is like having a room, being in a room, because it's not like, I don't know, to me at least, I don't feel like I'm like teaching the room. Do you know what I mean? I don't feel like I'm in a position of power across the room.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm with my peers,
yeah.
and that's really nice. Like I really enjoy that kind of warmth that you get back and you're giving to them.
Mm. This podcast is being recorded at the end of January 2024, and just last week I was in the audience watching Russell Kane, and I went on Monday night to a venue, and I went on Tuesday night to another venue, and he saw me. The first night I was sitting at the back, and the second night I was sitting at the front, and he saw me, and he incorporated me into the most funniest routine about going to see him twice in 1 week.
That's so funny.
So who
That's
does
so
it? And
funny.
that was extraordinary. That just seeing or a reaction or again in the moment, and he's away.
Yeah.
There's another favourite comedian of mine based in Hull who didn't walked on stage. Wasn't supposed to be there because the booked act couldn't make it, and he was asked to do it, and he walked on, and he said, I've no idea what I'm going to talk about. Does anybody have any questions or comments? And I put my hand, I yelled out, I've been amazed that I've got diabetes as a result of eating 2 packets of crisps a day for 30 years. And you applaud him, but he created this routine about crisps that went on for about 20 minutes. It's one of the funniest things I've ever heard, and that's the magic of it. Again, another example of being in the room. And you're, I mean, I only saw you for 5 or 10 minutes, but I could see you, as you were saying, riffing, trying to find something, and you're away, and it just took off when you were on stage. It was wonderful.
That's so nice, thank you.
I can't ever imagine you having a bad gig because you were so warm on stage. Can you tell me about your best and worst ever gigs, please?
Yes, I can. My worst one.
Oh.
Well, I've got two. I've got two worst ones. One was just like I went out in Bristol. It's like Smoke and Mirrors as a club, which is such a lovely club, and I've done
Yeah,
it before and after there, and it's been lovely. So it's
yeah.
not on the club at all, but I felt like I'd killed everyone in the audience's mum. Like everyone hated me.
Oh
Just the
no.
second I stepped on stage, nothing. I was like, and I was like, I was like, I don't know. I've never.
I need
This
to
that
leave.
was it was the worst. It was the worst bomb anyone has ever bombed. It was horrendous. Like they just weren't even listening. I don't think it was just like sat there staring in stony silence at me. And
No.
they were a good audience. They laughed at other people, so they just didn't like me, which feels way worse. At one point on that gig, I just went and stood in the corner of the stage, staring at the curtain at the back of it, being like, "I'm gonna go stand here for a second and think about what I've done," because you guys are hating me. That was like one of the worst.
It's
I think it was
awful.
worse. It was really bad. It was really bad. But I've never had another one like that.
No.
I genuinely still to this day like don't really know what happened with it. Like
Wow.
I wish I could say because it wasn't. I don't know. I don't know. They just hated me.
That's
Um,
bonkers.
well, what can you do? There's like 70 people walking around Bristol who want me dead. that's
Please
that's
don't
how
say
it
that.
goes. And then
The
another
best
one.
one then.
Well, no, this is the other worst, another worst one, but in a different way.
Okay, sorry,
So
I've opened the can of worms.
the worst ones are fun, like they are fun. But this was a comic before me. I was maybe like, I don't know, I was definitely under 10 gigs in, I would say.
Yeah.
And a comic before me, it was on a mixed bill lineup. A comic before me had gone on, and oh, this was so unfortunate. They were kind of not doing well. They weren't like making anyone laugh. And then they were American and they started being like, oh, I know you guys all just, think I'm American. So you don't like me because I'm American. And then they mentioned 9/11 and there was this real tension in the room.
Oh, no.
And this guy on the front row got up and walked out and like she was like, oh, you're walking out of my set, and this guy was like, I was there. And
Oh
my
no.
god, oh my god, like everyone just like froze. It was horrible. It was the worst feeling ever. And I was looking up at the lineup being like, please don't let me be on next, please don't let me be on next. And I was on next. And I was like, great.
Oh
And
no.
that one actually, the reason I had to put in another worst gig story is because that one actually then went really well because I think everyone in the audience just really wanted to laugh.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
I said anything and they would just be like, as long as it's not about 9/11, we're all good. And I was like,
Oh
okay, yeah.
no.
It was
Oh, poo
a
you.
horrible feeling before, but it did turn out around. I felt so bad for that comedian as well. Like she really hadn't meant, like obviously she hadn't
No,
meant to
of
do that.
course.
She was
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
having a
Um,
bad gig.
how many gigs have you done in your career?
I don't know. I stopped counting after 100, so I don't really
Right,
know.
right,
Yeah.
right. Okay. And before you go on stage, do you get any nerves? Do you get nervous at all? And if so,
Not
how do you cope
for
with them?
not for performing, no.
No.
I do get really nervous about hanging out with other comedians. So
Right,
the green room is scarier for me than the stage is. The stage
right,
I feel very confident on, but I don't know, being around other comedians, once you've been like backstage with comedians, you realize how bitchy they are. And
right.
you're like, I don't want you watching me. My favorite gig ever was this one in a random pub. and we had a blackout in it. But because the pub room was really long and skinny, and it was absolutely packed out, like people were standing, it was so full that the other comedians had to stand in a hall outside, and just the door was shut. And I was like, this is my dream. There's no one else who is a comedian who's watching me. I can just like have fun with these people. And because the lights, like this girl, the room was so full, this girl like hit the light switch with her elbow and it plunged into darkness. And I'd been like joke flirting with a guy in the audience called Paul. And I was like, I was like, be honest, guys, when the lights came back on, did you expect that I'd be sat on Paul's lap? And it was just so much fun. Like, it was so like freeing to like know that there was no one else who was going to say something nasty about me watching. That the audience is great. They're my pals. Comedians are not my pals.
That's very interesting, because of course the other thing about going up on stage is confidence. And so if you're confident performing but not confident around other people, that's fascinating. Is it just comedians themselves?
Yeah.
And is it the fact that you're that you don't know what they're going to say about you, if they're going to right?
I think that's part of it. I think it's also partly that I've seen people kind of say really nasty stuff about their close friends, and I'm like, oh, okay, if you're going to say that about that person, then what are you saying about me? So like there's a level of like insecurity there. It's also, I do just have social anxiety, but weirdly with like, it's because I think the audience is invested in having a good time, right? Whereas comedians aren't necessarily invested in having a good time. They're invested in themselves doing well. So I think there's a different and I do like some comedians, I will say that. But I feel much more comfortable if I'm at a gig if someone that I know is my friend is there, rather than like, I feel much more confident in those kind of situations when it's people that I don't know. They can be the loveliest people in the world, but I'll still feel very nervous about speaking to them.
So if I was in the front row going bananas laughing at you, you'd be absolutely fine.
Oh no, I more meant like, I mean, I would be fine even if you weren't. Like, honestly, standing on stage, standing on stage, I'd know that I would give it my best shot to try and make you laugh.
I see.
That wouldn't bother me. But I think more like being in the green room, I'd find it much easier knowing that I had like one of my friends with me, like a comedian friend with me, than meeting like comedians that I hadn't met before. That stresses me out.
Sure. Because with me, for years, I never had much confidence, and when I used to go to comedy clubs, I used to sit at the back of the room and think, well, my laugh will carry, they'll hear.
Well, in fairness, Richard, you were 7, so I don't think
no, any of us at the start. We'll move on to that later. this would still be what, 20 years ago. So in the third, when I was at college, I became a lot more confident when I was at college, because I used to go to a lot of comedy shows, and I moved from the back row to the front row. And what I learned is that the comedians would include you in part of their set, or they would know, or they would say hello to you or something like that. And I loved that. So a classic example is someone like Josh Widdicombe who'll come on and go, hello, Rich, I hadn't seen you.
Oh.
And then there'd be a joke or incorporate something, and I love that. And the great thing about doing the blog and the podcast is that over the years that I've been doing it, it's the recognition. Wherever I go now, people go, oh, it's the greatest audience member in the world. That's
so nice.
That's fantastic, you know. But it's fascinating, because there are over 2,000 photographs in my gallery on the blog. So I love to go up and meet them just to say hello. And one of the most recent ones was at Edinburgh. I'd never met Frank Skinner before.
Okay.
And he walked out, and I was a bit nervous, and he was with his manager, and I went up to him and I went, oh, Frank, I said, I'm such a big fan. I said, I've been watching your shows for years, and I've just seen your show tonight. Is there any chance of a photograph? He said, oh, yes, of course. He said, no problem. He said, thank God. He said, I thought you were going to ask for a refund. So there's always a tag, you know. But I find that they're all human beings, you know, and
Yeah.
they just want the support, and here I am to help them out. So what's not to love? Let's move on. How do you remember all your routines? Do you have pointers in your head? Do you have things written down again that you can look at or glance at, or how do you remember it all?
I don't really, because especially because at the moment I've been doing so much more riffing, there's not a
Right,
huge amount of pressure for me to remember stuff.
right,
And the things that I do have to remember, I think are just muscle memory at this point. Like it's kind of if you also like no one in the audience is going to know if you didn't do one of your jokes that you
yeah,
were planning to do that night. Like no one's going to know, even in an hour show. Like unless it's like a really crucial plot point, no one is going to know. Like they don't know your notes. They don't know
no,
anything that you're thinking.
yeah.
So like I don't know. It comes kind of naturally to be able to remember some stuff, and then what I don't remember, I'm not going to like self-flagellate myself over. Because go, oh well.
One of the most creative things I did, apart from this blog, was I wrote a play,
Oh, cool.
and we put it on for Comic Relief. It's called The Applicant. It's basically about me coming down from Carlisle to London, and I've got a very successful girlfriend, and I never had a job, so it's me going for my first ever interview, not a clue, and then it builds up to me getting the interview that I want. So literally, it was like monologue, interview, monologue, interview, monologue, interview. So of course I ran out and never ever write monologues because I had
That's
six
so long.
pages of the storyline and I
Oh
ran
my
out
God.
and we'd been rehearsing this for like 10 weeks and I ran out the first night and I forgot it.
The first night as well. What a storming
And
start. That's
literally it
so
was like,
funny.
what am I doing here? I want to go home. This is.
Did you
And
cover? Did you recover?
I did, yeah, yeah. As soon as the other actor came on, it was
Back and
uh,
forth again and fine.
backwards and forwards. But I was going to ask you, do you? I mean, I know it's more riffing, but do you think comedy is like acting, where if you forget things, you've got something like the audience for a prop, so you can go back to them and yeah,
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 absolutely. And I use that all the time. If something
yeah.
I've said isn't funny, I'm like, what about you? That's a weird hat.
Yeah,
Like,
just
like immediately
and you're
to
away
them.
again. Yeah, yeah,
I do think though, like acting is weird because you're doing essentially like the audience is the fourth wall, right?
yeah,
Like they are just looking in at you, not reacting with you. Whereas comedy to me is more like a conversation in what it is. Like it's not always because some people are amazing at not doing that and not interacting with the audience and still making everyone in the room laugh, which is incredible to me. Like that blows my mind. But to me, I'm like, why would I have a one-way conversation when I could speak back and forth with
yeah.
someone? Like it doesn't make any sense to me and the way my brain works.
It's such a good analogy. Um, what was your first Edinburgh Fringe like? Have you been to Edinburgh? Have you been up to the Fringe?
I have, yeah. I've been up twice now, I
Yeah.
think. That might be a lie. I might have been up three times. Don't fact check this. I can't remember. I went up the first time. I did a split bill with my friend Molly Lemoy,
Yeah.
which was very fun. It was like half an hour of me, half an hour of her. We had a really great time, and I think I was really nervous because we'd heard a lot beforehand about like, people having falling us out if they were doing the whole month together and stuff. We just had a blast. Like we
Yeah.
had so much fun flyering.
Yeah.
Flyering is my favorite part of the Fringe, and I
Yeah.
think I'm the only
Yeah. Yeah.
comedian who thinks that way. But it's the best thing ever. It's so much fun. You essentially just get to do like a mini show on the street before your show. Like we had good rooms because we both cared so much and did so much fun stuff while flyering. It was really fun. I love Edinburgh. I don't have a bad thing to say about it.
So, did you progress from half an hour, or have you done a solo show or anything like that?
So not yet. I'm
Yeah.
going to do a 45-minute show at some point and then go to an hour. But last year I just did spots. Like I just went up for a shorter period and just did some spots.
Are you there this year in 2024?
I think I'll do the same thing and just do some spots this year. I haven't I've been like really busy with, I've got a day job, shock. Everyone in the room is
And
shocked.
they all.
Oh my God, the silence heard around the world. What? She has to work? Crazy. So my day job's been quite busy.
Yeah.
So I think I'm gonna do some spots this year and then hopefully work on a longer show next year. What I really want to do, this is so silly, but I want to do like at least 45 minutes about how much I fancy the BBC's Matt Baker. Um,
But you never
but
know, he might be in the audience.
if he is, I'm sitting on his lap when the lights go out. I'll do that.
I've been to going to Edinburgh. I'm very lucky to be able to go. It's my holiday, and I go up for a week. I've been there since 2005, something like that. 18
Wow.
years, something like that. It's just extraordinary. You step off the train at Waverley, and it just hits you, the
Yeah, it's lovely.
atmosphere. And I see about 50 shows in the week that I'm there.
That's not a
And
holiday.
well, I mean, I just love it. Everybody comes up who I know from all over Britain. I've got two very good friends in London who come along everywhere with me, and I love to go to fringes and festivals. I've branched out the last year. We've got Leicester coming up in February. We go to Hastings in June. That's a very good one. There's Brighton Festival. There's Edinburgh, and there's Hull as well in November. So it's right across the board, and I just love the atmosphere of them and watching, trying to find somebody new and exciting, like you
Yeah,
said,
that's fun.
and just watching them bloom is just amazing. Um, to date, what's been your comedy highlight? Have you had one?
Yeah. Have you had one?
You
I'm
must
so
have had one.
savage.
You must have
Um,
had loads.
yeah, I would say this is so cheesy of me, and especially considering I've just slated how nervous I get around comedians. But the people that I've made friends with in comedy, the real highlight has been the friends I've made along the way. But it has been like there are people that I now see, and I'm like, oh, I think you're like the future of comedy. I think you're incredible. Like that's so cool, and you're so nice and funny and like great that 100%. I mean, I now like my landlord who I live with is a comedian who I met doing comedy.
Oh
So I'm
wow,
like, that's great. Like I
that's
wouldn't have a
brilliant.
house if it wasn't for comedy. So that's maybe the highlight. But yeah, loads of people that I've met that I just do absolutely love and think are amazing.
It's so nice that you are passionate about the craft and you've said that because I think everybody helps everybody out within the industry. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would say it's still quite cliquey. Like there are definitely like you don't, it's not like a kind of free for all,
Yeah.
but people are friendly if you ask them to be, and if you're
Yeah.
friendly back, people will be friendly. And I think within friendship groups it's incredibly supportive and amazingly friendly. So yes, I would just say I wouldn't expect to like, it's not like Woodstock and we're all walking around like kissing each other and being like, you're amazing. Like, there's definitely still some horrible stories,
Yeah, yeah,
but it is a really nice, it's what you make of it, like
yeah,
anything.
yeah. And who are your favourite comedians, past and present? Have you
Well,
had comedy growing up?
no.
Right.
Yes. Yeah, like so I'm essentially, I shouldn't be on this podcast because you're definitely the comedy expert here. Of the two of us, you are definitely the comedy expert. Growing up, the only comedian that I ever really listened to was Eddie Izzard, because my mum was a huge
Yeah,
Eddie Izzard fan, and we
yeah,
had her CDs and stuff in the car. I used to listen to them like when I was growing up,
yeah.
and I used to like, well, this was when I was like 5, right? So I'd know what bits would make my mum laugh the most, and I'd like memorize those bits and then perform them for her when we were in the kitchen or whatever, and she would
Oh wow.
dying laughing. And I do want to say I don't do that now. I don't steal other comedians' materials for my own laugh now.
You're not
But it was like
wrong.
she like loved it, and I think that was the first time I'd ever really heard something and been like, wow, that's amazing, it's so
Yeah,
funny. And other than that, I then kind of just dipped out of comedy for a really long time. Like I'd watch comedy on TV in terms of like panel shows
yeah,
or sitcoms or whatever, but I wasn't really into stand up at all. um but now I am, obviously. And my favorite comedian who is like kind of very present is probably Rory Scovel. Do you know Rory
Superb,
Scovel? Yeah.
superb. Yeah,
So like when I watched his improvised special, I was genuinely, I think it's the first time that I've ever watched something and just been like, that is exactly what I want to do. Like I was like, wow, that's like it's unbelievable how much I want to be as good as he is as at this thing. Like I was like, wow, that's so incredible. So yeah, probably him.
that's brilliant. Well, my very first ever comedy gig was Les Dawson. Have you heard of him in the 70s? Northern
Heard the
comedian.
name. I wouldn't be able to tell you anything else.
If you think, I think the closest thing we've got now to him is Peter Kay.
Okay,
So
okay,
yeah,
cool.
so we saw him in 1974 on holiday, and then a year later we saw Tommy Cooper,
Oh, I know.
who's a
he's the
comedy
Fez
legend, real
guy.
Fez
Yeah, yeah.
man. Yeah, and then I started writing everything down. I started writing it where I'd seen him, a numbered review I give them, and it just took off from there. I had all these lists. I transformed it into a spreadsheet,
So you
and
literally did that from your first
yeah,
gig.
yeah, yeah. So
Wow,
I've
that's
got
amazing.
something like 1,455 comedians now, and as I say, the magic of it is watching them grow and develop. So I remember I saw Harry Hill well before he was famous. As an example, I saw him at the King's Head Theatre in Crouch End, downstairs.
Yeah, yeah.
King's Head, lovely venue,
It is a very
and
nice venue.
he brushed past me, jumped onto the stage, and went, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm really sorry I'm late. I had to have a testicle brought down," and there was a pause, and then he said, "From Derby."
That's very funny.
And to this day, that is my favourite opening line ever to a gig. And when I met him 25 years later, I told him this, and he said, "Oh, Rich," he said, "I still keep telling that in the
That's so
act."
funny.
So there's lots of gems like that. But I saw Alan Davis before he was popular, Sarah Millican, Michael McIntyre. I saw at Edinburgh, Peter Kay in a room of 5 comedians. I laughed so hard at him. He was fourth on the bill. I missed the fifth act because I was still laughing at
Just
him.
still laughing.
And
Wow.
it's just, and it's magic like that. First time I came down to London I went to the Comedy Store, and there was Linda Smith, Phil Jupitus, Richard Morton was on, and just watched everybody since then grow and develop. It's amazing, and now I go 2 or 3 times a week, which is
You are the backbone of the live comedy industry.
you're very
You're the spine.
kind. I can't go every night; it'd kill us. But I do genuinely, of course, love to go and find great comic talent like yourself. It's part and parcel of it. Following on from that, like me, do you go to a lot of gigs as a member of the audience?
A lot is probably a stretch. I do try to. I'm going to a couple of things coming up, which I'm excited for. Like I'm going to see Julia Masley's show
Oh,
at the Soho
superb!
Theatre. I'm really
Yeah,
excited for that. And I'm going to see Sam Campbell's show.
he's really
Um,
good.
yeah, he's amazing,
Yeah,
like unbelievably good.
yeah.
And I'm also going to see Please Don't Destroy, who are this American sketch comedian group,
Right.
who I love. I love going to see sketch. That's like, I think partly because it's like a break from stand up, but like I love sketch comedy. I genuinely think it's amazing. Like my favorite comedians, oh, I should have said them earlier as well. Like my favorite UK based present comedians are probably Taro. I think they're so,
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Wow, wow. If you're on a comedy bill, would you stay? If you were first on, would you stay and watch all the acts?
No.
Right.
No, I want to get home.
Yeah, you do it and go.
Like it depends who the acts are. If the acts are my friends, then yeah, sure, I'll stay.
Yeah.
Like, but if they're not, then no.
Okay, fine. I've so much enjoyed chatting to you today. It's been
It's been really
absolutely
lovely.
wonderful. Just before we go, is there anything else you'd like to say? Have you got any podcasts? Have you got any gigs coming up, or when this podcast when this recording will go out, it'll be about the summertime, August, September time. You know, that far ahead.
Oh
What's
my
your
God.
social media handles? Anything like that?
Yeah, I'll push my social media. I don't know what gigs I'll be doing in August. I
No.
mean, I'll be doing some stuff in Edinburgh, but I don't
Yeah.
know what. But you
Yeah.
can find, I've got a website. If you search Carla Gordon Comedian, it will come up because I can't remember the website name. I think it's just carlagordon.com, but I could be wrong. And then I would say follow my Instagram because that's where I'm best, which is at Carla Gordon. It couldn't be easier to find. So if you don't do it, that's on you.
Well, I'm looking forward so much to seeing you again live soon, because I
Thank
thought
you.
I know it was only 5 or 10 minutes, but I thought there's something there. There's something magical about this comedian, and
That's
you
so nice.
proved it. You're absolutely hilarious. So I'm looking forward to coming to see you again soon.
I'm looking forward to the second I see you in an audience. I'm being like, great gig. It's already a great gig. Thank you. It was so nice
Thank you
talking
so
to you.
much for your time. I've so much enjoyed chatting to you, and all the best to
You
you.
too. Bye.
Thank you.